Hello and welcome. I'm Kristen Lewis. I'm the Executive Director of the Canadian Centre for Men and Families BC Division and the head of the newly established Canadian Centre for Men and Families National Legal Services Committee. The Canadian Centre for Men and Families is the first of its kind in Canada, the nation's leader in the men's advocacy and service delivery space. We're an open, inclusive, and safe space dedicated to the health and well-being of boys, men, fathers, and their families. We provide workshops, counseling, discussion groups, peer support groups, and a variety of special events. I'd like to invite you to join us on March 20th, that's this coming Monday, as we host Mason Schell, the executive director of our ally agency, the BC Male Survivors of Sexual Assault. Mason Schell is an excellent clinician with expertise in the ways in which trauma shows up in the lives of men. He will speak to the need for a male-centered approach to trauma-informed care, and he will help us raise awareness about the realities of male victimization. Unfortunately, for many men who are survivors of sexualized violence, intimate partner violence, and other forms of violence, the pain of victimization is compounded by widespread public denial of the reality of male victimization. In the public sphere, in academic spaces, even in clinical settings, men and boys' experience of victimization is routinely minimized. There are a variety of reasons for this. Part of it is because men, in many cases, have been acculturated to minimize the pain of victimization, to deny what's happened to them. Part of it is also because Statistics Canada, for instance, has failed to collect data about male victimization in the same ways that it collects data about female victimization. This is something that the Canadian Centre for Men and Families is working in collaborative partnership with Statistics Canada to change so that we can have more accurate statistics about male victimization. In the meantime, the hundreds of clients at the Canadian Centre for Men and Families, the hundreds of clients, thousands of clients who have come through the BC Male Survivors of Sexual Assault give anecdotal evidence of the reality of male victimization and that the pain survivors face when trying to get help in a world that routinely denies and minimizes male victimization, denies adequate funding to service organizations that serve men, and otherwise deprioritizes the need to address men who are survivors of violence of various kinds. Sexual assault, child abuse, intimate partner violence affect men at much higher rates than many of us realize. So in order to address this ignorance about the ways in which trauma shows up in men as a result of victimization, we're pleased that Mason will be joining us, and we hope you'll join us too. One of the things we will speak to at this event is that victimization takes unique forms for men. For instance, coercive control, false allegations weaponized as a form of abuse, parental alienation and vexatious litigation, psychological abuse. These are all forms of violence against men that need to be clearly articulated as forms of domestic abuse in order for men to get the help they need and start the journey of recovery from trauma. At the Canadian Centre for Men and Families, we believe that advocating for survivors is not a zero-sum game where some win only if others lose. Advocating for men need not mean detracting for the real pressing need for targeted advocacy and service delivery to address the tragedy of ongoing violence against women. Rather, we at the Canadian Centre for Men and Families hold that when men are stronger, families are stronger, communities are safer, workplaces are more productive and creative, and we all benefit. Please join us in supporting our men. We stand with survivors of all genders, and we direct our advocacy towards men and boys and our services towards men and boys, because this is an underserved segment of the population, and we need to serve men as well as raise awareness about the reality of male victimization. so we can support those who need it and move forward in a compassionate way. Hope to see you in Vancouver on Monday. And if you can't make it in person, please join us online and consider donating to the Canadian Centre for Men and Families. We're mostly a private funded charity because, in part, of the fact that in the public sphere, the need for robust public funding for men's services agencies such as ours, such as BC Male Survivors, is not yet adequately understood. Help us, give us some money so that we can keep pressing Statistics Canada, government agencies, and our elected representatives to take more seriously the crisis affecting our men and boys. In the meantime, I wish you well. Survivors out there, I thank you for your courage. Keep going. Together we get stronger.